This is more than a fight story. It is the portrait of a woman carrying grief, discipline, and the weight of a father's unfinished legacy. Sarah Mitchell survives humiliation, exhaustion, and brutal combat not just to defend her place, but to prove that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to keep moving through it. That emotional core makes this hook hit deeper than action alone.
Before the sun broke, Lieutenant Mitchell finished her 200th push-up. It was 05:30 at Coronado, the air tasting of salt and fuel. Her arms were on fire, but her breathing was even. Failure was not an option. 30 SEALs moved around her like a single organism. It was the cadence of men who had walked through fire for their tridents, and she was one of them. At 5'3" and 125 pounds, she was the most compact operator on Team 5. At 26, she'd been there 2 years, 3 months, 14 days. Each morning, she re-earned her place. Time! Master Chief Turner's voice cut the pre-dawn hush. Recovery, stretch, now. Mitchell rose in one smooth motion, not a tremor in her. Weakness invited questions. Questions became doubt. And doubt filled body bags. The team stretched in disciplined silence. These were her brothers. These operators saw her conquer Hell Week and claim her trident. Then the buses arrived, carrying a storm that would challenge everything in 2 short weeks. Before that story unfolds, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and tell me what city you're from in the comments. Now, back to it. 3 olive drab transports rolled past the gate, marked with the eagle, globe, and anchor. Mitchell felt the tension spike. The relationship between SEALs and jarheads was a strange one, equal parts rivalry and respect. The bus doors hissed, deploying 6 Marines with the distinct swagger of force recon. It was the confidence born from regularly jumping out of perfectly good aircraft. Mitchell knew the type. Her dad was one. The lead Marine, Bennett, stood 6'2", a chiseled 195 with Staff Sergeant chevrons on his sleeve. Master Chief Turner approached, his hand extended. Master Chief Turner, welcome to the Rock. Bennett's grip was like a vice, his eyes sizing up the SEALs. His gaze stopped on Mitchell for a beat too long, a smirk forming. His next words lit a match. Staff Sergeant Marcus Bennett, Force Recon, his voice carried, "My men are here for 2 weeks of joint ops." "Good to have you," Turner said, motioning to his team. "My guys are spun up. We'll run some drills, trade TTPs, get integrated." Bennett's gaze snapped back to Mitchell, a look of pure contempt on his face. "All of your guys?" The question was loaded. Mitchell knew that tone intimately. She'd heard it from day one of boot camp through every single training evolution since. The doubt was a familiar shadow. Bennett turned to his men, raising his voice. "Looks like Nav Spec would drop their standards, boys." He paused. "Maybe she's on coffee duty." The Marines laughed. The SEALs were stone-faced. Mitchell felt 30 pairs of eyes shift to her. She remained at attention, staring straight ahead, her father's words from when she was 12 echoing in her mind. Asterisk, when they test you, kid, you become stone, you become water, give them nothing. Asterisk. Bennett closed the distance, his boots crunching on the pavement, stopping 3 feet away. Close enough to be an invasion, but far enough to be deniable. "What's your rate, sailor?" The jab was calculated. She met his stare, her voice flat. "Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, SEAL Team 5. "SEAL," he repeated the word, making it sound dirty. "How long you been playing dress-up, Lieutenant?" 2 years, Staff Sergeant. 2 whole years, he whistled softly. "Fellas, we got a real operator here." He smiled, but it was all teeth. "Tell me, Lieutenant, did they ease up on Bud, S for you? Lower the O-course wall, let you skip the surf torture part?" A muscle in her jaw twitched, the only outward sign of her anger. "Same course, same standards, same Hell Week." "Sure," Bennett sneered. "I'm sure." He turned to the formation. "I'm positive the Navy gave you the exact same test as the men. No politics, no diversity quota, no calls from Washington, D.C. He leaned in, his voice a low growl. "Try not to break a nail, Princess. It's only 2 weeks." The insult felt like a physical blow. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. Every fiber of her being wanted to wipe that grin off his face. But she was stone. Water? Yes, Staff Sergeant. Her voice was devoid of emotion. He held her gaze for 3 full seconds before turning back to the Master Chief. My Marines are good to go, Master Chief, assuming this isn't a babysitting gig. Turner's face was unreadable, a mask forged over 32 years of service. We're here to work, Staff Sergeant. Get your team squared away. The formation dissolved. The Marines moved to the barracks as the SEALs melted away. Mitchell stood her ground until she was alone, then started toward the ocean. She needed to burn it off. She didn't realize Bennett had just set a timer on the most dangerous night of her life. It was a night that would prove if warriors were born from hardship or just born. The next 12 days were an exercise in psychological warfare. On every op, in every brief, at every meal, the Marines kept up the pressure. At the range, Mitchell was shooting qualifications, 40 rounds, 300 yards, iron sights, in a 15-knot wind. She timed her trigger squeeze to the pause between her heartbeats, a trick her father had taught her. 40 rounds sent, 40 rounds on target, all inside a single ragged hole. A perfect score. Bennett watched from the tower. Must be nice having the targets closer for you. Bet hers is only 10 yards out, his Marine snorted. Mitchell cleared her rifle without a word, filing the insult away. Bennett had no idea what was building up inside her. Next was a 2-mile ocean swim, 62-degree water, full gear, and a 50-pound ruck. She had been raised in these waters, making peace with the Pacific's cold embrace during Hell Week. The chill was a familiar friend. She hit the beach 8 minutes before anyone else, breathing hard but steady, no shivering. Bennett was waiting on the sand. You must have caught a lucky current. Being smaller helps, less resistance. Mitchell just wrung the salt water from her hair. Yes, Staff Sergeant. After that, they hit the kill house for live fire drills. This was the most dangerous work, where one mistake meant a flag-draped box. Her team cleared 6 rooms, neutralizing 42 targets with 0 friendly fire in 93 seconds. It was a textbook run. Bennett watched the footage. Anyone can shoot paper. It's a different game when the targets shoot back. His corporal, a guy named Garcia, nodded. Women aren't wired for combat. It's just biology. When it goes kinetic, instinct kicks in. 15 feet away, Mitchell was cleaning her rifle. She heard it all and remained silent. But Garcia had just signed up for a class he never wanted, and in 3 days, he'd pay the price. The gym was packed with operators from both units, the floor lined with mats. The SEAL hand-to-hand instructor, a salty chief, asked for volunteers. I need a grappler and a striker. We're going to demonstrate some blended techniques. I'll volunteer, Lieutenant Mitchell. Bennett's voice silenced the room. Mitchell saw his cold smile. Come on, Lieutenant. Show us what these new Navy standards can do. The instructor tried to step in. Staff Sergeant, no disrespect, Chief. This is about integration, right? So let's integrate. Bennett pointed to his corporal. Garcia, here is a 3rd-degree Taekwondo black belt. He'll go easy. Garcia, 5'9" and 170, stepped forward with the same condescending smirk. I'll be gentle, ma'am. Sarah looked at the instructor. His expression told her everything. It was an ambush. It was a public execution designed to break her. He gave her a subtle nod. Your call. Mitchell stepped onto the mat. No ceremony, no warm-up, just action. All right, the instructor began. We'll do a light demo. 20% speed, pure technique. Nah, Bennett cut in. Let's see some real-world application. Full speed, full contact. Let's see what a SEAL is really made of. The gym fell completely silent. 60 operators watched, waiting. This wasn't a drill. This was the final point Bennett had been making for 12 days straight. Women had no place on the teams. The instructor looked at Sarah. You good with that, Lieutenant? Sarah squared up, reading Garcia's stance, his balance, the forward lean of a kicker, the relaxed posture of a man who thought he'd already won. Her dad's voice echoed in her mind. Asterisk. They always broadcast how they're going to lose, kiddo. You just have to listen. Asterisk. Yes, Chief. Full contact is fine with me. What happened in the next 18 seconds sent a shockwave through the gym, setting the stage for a final test that would push Mitchell to her absolute breaking point. Garcia's smirk widened. He bounced on his feet, loose and confident, already seeing his highlight reel finish. The instructor sighed. Okay, standard rules. No groin, no throat, no eye gouges. The fight is over on a tap, a verbal quit, or my command. He looked between them. Touch gloves, keep it professional. Their gloves touched. Sarah's hands looked small against Garcia's. Ready? The instructor dropped his hand. Go. Garcia rushed in immediately, a jab to find his range, then a spinning back kick, straight from the textbook. It was fast, a perfect strike. It should have ended the fight, but Mitchell was already gone. She had read the weight shift, the telegraph in his hips, before he even began the spin. He was committed to the kick. There was no bailing out. She slid inside his kicking arc, using his own momentum to throw him past her. Garcia landed off balance, looking for a target that had vanished into thin air. Sarah was already behind him. She hooked his lead ankle with her foot, a simple trip that turned his own aggressive energy against him. Garcia's world went sideways as panic flared in his eyes. He slammed into the mat, the canvas biting his back. Sarah was on him in a flash, establishing side control. He reacted instantly, trying to bridge and create space, but she'd already snared his arm, her legs cinching an arm triangle around his neck. His free hand shot up to her face, a predictable, textbook defense. Sarah used his push, rolled them both, and landed in full mount on his chest. The choke sank deeper. Her shoulder drove into one carotid, while his own arm sealed the other. His vision started to tunnel. Garcia's eyes bulged as he bucked and thrashed. It was futile. His face turned crimson, then a deep plum. He tapped a desperate 3-beat rhythm on the mat. Sarah broke the hold immediately, rolling off as he coughed and sputtered. 18 seconds. The gym fell dead silent. Sarah offered a hand up. He hesitated, then took it. Good roll, Corporal. Garcia massaged his neck, his gaze locked on her, a new light of respect in his eyes. Where'd you pick that up? My dad. Grappling was my first language. Bennett's voice cut the silence like a knife. Lucky, the word dripped with acid. Anybody can get lucky once. The spell shattered. A low murmur spread through the Marines. The instructor started to step in, but Master Chief Turner materialized from the shadows. Sarah hadn't even seen him, didn't know how long he'd been standing there. His eyes, still sharp at 62, zeroed in on Bennett. You got a point, Staff Sergeant, Turner said, his voice a low rumble. Once is luck. Bennett's smug grin reappeared. That's what I'm saying, so how about 6 times? The gym went quiet again. What Turner proposed next would force Sarah to bet her entire career. Turner walked to the center of the mat. Everyone in that room knew the legend. Master Chief Robert Turner earned his trident in 1982, fought in every hellhole from Grenada to the sandbox. He'd molded 3 generations of frogmen. When he spoke, admirals took notes. You have 6 Marines, Staff Sergeant Bennett. Lieutenant Mitchell here is a single SEAL. Turner's quiet words filled the cavernous gym. The odds seem a bit lopsided, wouldn't you say? Bennett's bravado cracked. Master Chief, I don't. Here's what's gonna happen. Turner pivoted, his voice now addressing everyone. We're here for 2 weeks to build unit cohesion, but I'm sensing a debate on standards, on who belongs in this world. He turned back to Bennett. Let's settle it. An exhibition. Lieutenant Mitchell versus your entire fire team. 1-on-1. 6 straight bouts. Full contact. No rounds. The room exploded. Voices clashed like waves on rock. The SEALs were aghast. The Marines looked like sharks smelling blood. Sarah's heart hammered her ribs. 6 consecutive fights. She'd never conceived of it. Bennett's shock morphed into a predatory grin. What are the stakes, Master Chief? Turner's smile was a razor. Lieutenant Mitchell wins. You write a formal apology to every woman on this base. It will be a page 1 entry in your permanent service record. Bennett's jaw clamped shut. And if I win, she requests an immediate transfer. Out of Team 5. Out of Spec War. Sarah felt the world drop out from under her. her career. Everything she'd bled for since she was 13 bet on a single night. 1 week to prepare for 6 fights that would either forge her legend or extinguish it. That week became an education in suffering. 4:30 a.m. Turner was at her door with black coffee and the promise of a new level of pain. He delivered. This wasn't your standard PT. It wasn't even Bud-S conditioning. This was something else. 5-minute rolling sessions, a fresh opponent rotated in every single time. Again, Turner commanded. You face 6. 2 minutes of rest. Get used to fighting with an empty tank. She got 30 seconds between rounds to suck down water and will her lungs to function. 10 rounds. 50 minutes of pure attrition. Her muscles were screaming. Her mind was a fog. 10 more. Sarah made it through 7 before she threw up. Turner gave her 60 seconds. Again. By nightfall, she'd done 25 rounds. Her body was just a collection of bruises animated by will. But Turner was only beginning. Day 2 was her father's system. He opened the old notebook to page 15. Small joints snap. Fingers, wrists, ankles. Fast, efficient. Move to the next one. No wasted motion, only brutal economy. They drilled joint manipulation for 14 hours straight. Turner's own hands were her practice targets. She learned to see every joint as a hinge, a weak point, a system designed to fail under calculated pressure. Your old man was an engineer first, Turner said. He knew a body is a machine, and every machine has a breaking point. Her hands performed the techniques thousands of times, isolating a digit, hyperextending a wrist, learning the precise angle of failure. Pain is just a signal, Turner coached. You attack a joint, you hijack their entire nervous system. Their brain has one priority: stop that signal. Everything else becomes secondary. They become a slave to that pain. By the end of day 2, Sarah could feel the structural mechanics of a person in her hands. She knew its weak points. Day 3 was about identifying weakness before the first move was made. Turner had Sarah just watch Bennett's fire team during their morning PT. Your father's second rule, he said, tapping the worn cover. Every fighter has a tell. Find it in 10 seconds. Use it in 1. Sarah observed. Sergeant Cooper called Tiny, 6'4", 240. A bull, but he lumbered. When fatigue set in, his left hand would drop, a habit from years of carrying a heavy machine gun. Corporal Davis, the sniper, was wiry and overconfident. He loved his reach, but left his neck exposed every time he reset. A flashy, fatal mistake. Corporal Martinez, the corpsman, was a former college wrestler. It showed in his stance. He was powerful, but his patterns were rigid. Every takedown attempt started the same way. Garcia was already solved. He'd come in hot, fighting angry and predictable. She had his number now. Rodriguez, Hound, was a pure brawler with no technique. He loaded up every punch, broadcasting his intentions from a mile out. And finally, Bennett, the leader, a Golden Gloves boxer. He was sharp, disciplined, but something was hidden beneath the surface. She watched him on the pads. His cross was a piston, his jab a wasp, but if you looked long enough, the tell was there. Each time he snapped that right hand, for a split second, his jaw tightened in a micro-expression of pain, an old rotator cuff injury, most likely. He tried to mask it, but the weakness was obvious. She documented everything in a tattered notebook, her father's principles on one side, her reconnaissance on the other. We're not training to fight, Turner had stated. We're training to win before the fight even begins. Day 4 was speed. Day 5 was forging an unbreakable mind. Your old man used to say, fast beats strong, and smart beats fast. But fast and smart, that's a ghost. They drilled transitions until the movements blurred into a single, fluid motion. Guard passes, sweeps, submissions, a constant chain. Her body began to react without conscious thought. It was muscle memory, burned into her synapses through thousands of reps. He moves left, you're already to the right. He pushes, you're already using his momentum against him. He thinks he has you trapped, you've already vanished. Turner ran her through the drills for 8 hours until she moved like water. Speed isn't about moving fast, Turner grunted between reps. It's about not being where the strike lands. He had her sit, Eyes closed. War game all 6 fights. See the win. Feel it. Your brain can't differentiate a real fight from a vivid simulation. Give yourself 6 victories right now. She pictured Garcia's telegraphed kick, Davis's open neck, Martinez's predictable shot. She saw Rodriguez's looping haymaker, Cooper's low guard, and Bennett's compromised shoulder. She visualized 6 wins. The body will follow where the mind has already been, Turner said. More importantly, when you're sucking wind and everything is on fire, your mind will remember winning. It's been there before. Days 6 and 7 were for recovery, but they also held the weight of her father's final entry, the words she would need when Saturday night tried to tear her apart. Turner made her swim an easy 20 laps, letting the cold Pacific water soothe her aching muscles. This was followed by ice baths, massage, and fuel. Fight is tomorrow, Turner said that night. Your body is ready. Your mind must be a razor's edge. Read this. He handed her the notebook, open to page 83. Your dad's last entry. He wrote it the week he shipped to Afghanistan. Sarah looked at the page. The handwriting was less controlled than the entries before it. He must have known. Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I am sorry I won't be there to see you become the warrior I always knew you would be. The toughest, sharpest woman imaginable. But strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back on your feet. Courage isn't being without fear. It's about executing the mission anyway. And a warrior doesn't hide tears. They wipe them and re-engage. I love you, kid. Make 'em remember the name. Dad. She reread the words, pulling the book to her chest. Tomorrow, 6 Marines would attempt to break her. She would show them what it meant to be a Mitchell. Day 7 dawned, cruel and beautiful. By 2000 hours, 400 people would see history. But she required one last item from her father, a gift Turner held for this very moment. Saturday dawned bright and clear, 72 degrees with an ocean breeze, perfect SoCal weather. Her stomach felt like a block of lead. 1800 hours, 2 hours till go time. She waited alone in her barracks, her father's journal, his SEAL trident, and the frayed Krav Maga black belt he earned hung on the wall. They were monuments to a heavy legacy. A rap on the door. It's unlocked. Master Chief Turner came in, carrying a small gear bag. His face was grim, but his eyes held kindness. You holding up? Scared, spitless? Good. Your dad was always scared before an op. Said it kept you sharp, made you check your 6. Only damn fools aren't afraid. Sarah gave a faint smile. He used to say that. Turner sat, pulling a worn black cloth from his bag. Your father wanted you to have this. He made me promise years ago. He told me to give it to you when you faced your greatest battle. He unrolled the fabric. It was a black belt, Krav Maga. The edges were frayed, the black faded to charcoal. This was his. Earned it back in 1990. Wore it for 15 years. Every drill, every deployment, he claimed it held his fighting spirit, everything he was. Turner offered it to her. Now it's your turn to carry it. Sarah accepted it with shaking hands. The material felt soft, almost without weight. She felt him in it, his sweat, his resolve, his love. Thank you, Master Chief. Don't thank me. You still have a fight to win. Turner stood. 2000 hours. Don't be late. He stopped at the door. And Sarah, your father had one last thing he'd say before a mission. What was it? Pain is weakness leaving the body. You're about to lose a lot of weakness tonight. In 2 hours, she would enter that gym wearing her father's belt. The events to follow would become base legend. But she didn't realize the true challenge wasn't the first bout or the 5th. The real test would arrive when her body was broken, her will was gone, and all that remained were the words her father had written 13 years prior. The gym was a packed sweatbox. Every SEAL, every Marine, officer, and enlisted 400 bodies jammed into a space meant for half that. A ring sat under harsh lights in the center. The base CO had sanctioned it as an official event. Sarah entered through a side door. She wore standard PTs, black shorts, and a gray tee. No jewelry, nothing extra. Just her father's black belt cinched at her waist. The gym's roar quieted to a low murmur. Master Chief Turner was already in her corner. He had put together a real team, 2 SEALs as her cornermen. With water, towels, and a trauma kit, Sarah slipped through the ropes. The canvas felt solid under her feet. This was real. Across the ring, Bennett and his Marines were joking, looking relaxed and sure of themselves. Garcia was shadowboxing. Davis stretched. Martinez and Rodriguez bumped their fists. Cooper, the short, powerful one, was popping his knuckles. Bennett made eye contact with Sarah and mouthed, "You'll cry." Her expression was pure granite. Captain Harrison, the CO, entered the ring with a mic. "Good evening. What you're about to witness is a sanctioned exhibition of hand-to-hand combat. Medical staff is on standby. The rules are standard MMA. No groin or throat strikes, no eye gouging. Victory is by submission, knockout, or ref stoppage." He paused for effect. Lieutenant Mitchell will fight 6 opponents in succession with a 2-minute rest between bouts. The order of fighters is by rank, junior to senior. Harrison turned to Sarah. "Lieutenant, do you accept these terms?" "Yes, sir." "Staff Sergeant Bennett, do your Marines accept?" "Damn right, sir. We can't wait." "Then let's get started." First match, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell versus Corporal Diego Garcia. The crowd erupted. Sarah returned to her corner. The next 25 minutes would determine her career. She was unaware that Garcia had spent a week planning his revenge and had a painful surprise ready for her. Turner put his hands on her shoulders. "Stick to the plan. Speed over power. Technique over mass. You've done this already. He's going to be emotional this time. Good. Anger makes you sloppy. You stay frosty, stay technical. Finish it fast. You got 5 more after him." Sarah nodded, breathing deep, trying to slow her heart. Corporal Garcia entered the ring shirtless. He was lean muscle, a taekwondo emblem inked on his ribs. He bounced on his feet, an animal coiled to strike. A senior SEAL acting as referee brought them to the center. "I want a clean fight. Protect yourselves at all times. Touch gloves." They did. Her hands seemed impossibly small against his. "Ready." The ref's arm sliced down. "Fight." Garcia lunged, faking a jab and a low kick to set up a spinning back kick. She anticipated it. She had visualized this exact sequence 100 times. The spin was textbook fast, clean, vicious. She moved inside the kick's arc, using his momentum to carry him past her. Garcia landed the spin slightly off kilter. Sarah just hooked his front leg, a simple sweep that turned his energy against him. Garcia slammed into the mat with a heavy thud. She dropped into side control in an instant. Garcia tried to bridge and escape, to create space, but she had already isolated his arm, her legs locking around his neck and shoulder. An arm triangle, it was a mirror of their first encounter, but tighter, faster, no hesitation. Garcia's eyes bulged. His free hand slapped frantically at her shoulder. She used his push to reverse position, ending in a full mount on his chest. The choke deepened. Garcia's face went from red to a dark purple. He tapped out 3 quick, desperate slaps on the canvas. Sarah released the hold and stood. He coughed, fighting for air as the gym exploded. 15 seconds. 1 down. But her own breathing was already strained. Turner noticed what the crowd had missed. A single victory was easy. The true battle was surviving 6 straight fights as fatigue built. Garcia stumbled from the ring, one hand massaging his bruised throat. Sarah watched him leave, her breath steadying, her pulse returning to a normal rhythm. Turner pushed a water bottle at her. "Sip it. 2 minutes will fly by." The cold water felt perfect. Her gaze scanned the 400 spectators. Some looked shocked. Others were on their feet, electrified. The SEALs were losing their minds. The Marines were quieter now, their confidence rattled. Bennett's smug grin was starting to fade. The ref yelled, "Time!" The break was over. Next fighter, Lieutenant Mitchell versus Lance Corporal Rodriguez. The man they called Hound climbed through the ropes with a look that could kill. This was the real challenge. Her precise skill against his raw, uncontrolled violence. They called him Hound for a very good reason. 6'1", 200 pounds of sheer aggression. His arms were covered in tattoos, His nose was a bent monument to old fights. He didn't waste time posing. He stalked to the center like a predator. "Nothing personal, ma'am," he growled as their gloves touched. "Just doing a job." "Understood," she replied. The referee stepped back. "Fight!" Rodriguez rushed her immediately, a whirlwind of fury with zero finesse. He threw a haymaker right meant to take her head clean off a one-shot ender. She had observed his sparring all week. She was prepared. Every one of his punches had the same huge, obvious windup. It packed a punch, but was painfully easy to read. She stepped into the attack, feeling the air stir as his fist sailed past her. His own momentum left him unbalanced, and she flowed with him, making his own power her weapon. It was a textbook hip throw from judo. Her hip became the fulcrum, his body the lever. It was pure physics. Rodriguez was flying before he even knew what happened, his eyes wide with shock. He hit the canvas hard, the impact forcing the air from his lungs with a sharp grunt. She heard him gasp, but the man was tough. He was already trying to get back to his feet to regain striking range. She gave him no space. As he rose to his hands and knees, she took his back, locking her legs around his waist as an arm slid under his chin. The rear naked choke was perfect. His neck was caught, the carotid arteries squeezed, cutting off blood to his brain. He grabbed her arm with a crushing grip, trying to peel it away. He was much stronger, but brute force meant nothing against flawless technique. The hold was absolute. Her angles were exact. No amount of strength could break that lock. He surged upward, making it to his feet with her clinging to him like a backpack. The crowd gasped. He staggered, trying to slam her into the turnbuckle, desperate to knock her loose. Her forearm felt his pulse hammer, then stutter. His feet dragged. "Tap out, Corporal," she hissed. He shook his head, a final act of defiance. The lights went out in his eyes, his knees gave, and they hit the mat in a heap. She held the choke with cold precision, releasing the moment he went limp. The ref was already between them, chopping the air. "He's out! Break!" She disengaged as the doc scrambled through the ropes. Rodriguez was out cold, his face a mask of purple, but breathing. The gym went tomb quiet. This wasn't training anymore. She'd put him to sleep. The secret she kept was the fire in her own lungs. 4 more men were on deck. Half a minute later, he stirred. His gaze found hers, a flash of respect quickly buried by humiliation. The corpsman escorted him out. When Sarah got to her feet, her legs were cinder blocks. That second victory took a heavy toll. That one was a grinder. Turner caught her. Textbook execution. "But you're sucking wind, water." Now, she collapsed onto the stool, acid screaming in her muscles. 4 more awaited. "You're still in this. You hear me?" Turner commanded. "Forget the next 4. Focus on this one." The ref bellowed. "Time. Lieutenant Mitchell, Corporal Martinez." The wrestler entered the ring, cocky. He wouldn't get caught like the others. But she'd spent 3 days watching his tape. She knew his tell. Martinez was a fireplug, 6 feet of solid muscle at 185. His collegiate tape showed pure power blast doubles and a crushing top game. But all that repetition had grooved habits into him, predictable ones. His game plan was obvious. Shoot, ground her, and let his weight do the work. Sarah rose, ignoring the burn. They tapped gloves. "No hard feelings, ma'am," he grunted. "This one's mine." She met his eyes. "We'll see about that." "Fight." He circled, cautious. Rushing in was suicide. He knew that much. He feinted, looking for a lane. She shadowed him, eyes locked on his hips, waiting for the telltale drop. 30 seconds crawled by. The grunts were getting impatient. He faked a punch and exploded downward, a textbook double leg. It was a blur of motion. But she was already moving, having seen his weight shift a fraction of a second early. A split second was all she got. She sprawled hard, hips dropping, legs shooting back. He hit a brick wall, his arms closed on nothing, and before he could recover, she spun behind him, already on his back. But Martinez wasn't a rookie. He instantly tried to hip escape into her. She anticipated it, cinching a body triangle he couldn't muscle out of. His hands shot up, fighting her grip, shielding his throat. The choke wasn't there, so she changed gears. She broke his posture, yanking his head back. Short, Chopping punches rained down, not for a KO, but to make him give her an opening. It was all legal. 1, 2, 3 clean shots. He covered up and his neck was open. She snaked an arm through for the choke, but he buried his chin. Smart defense. So she kept hitting him. 5, 6, 7. His defense got sluggish, his arms like lead. The ref hovered close, ready to call it. The shots kept coming. Then, for just a heartbeat, his hands fell away. The ref jumped in. It's over. Stop the fight. 2 minutes and 8 seconds on the clock. 3 down, halfway home. Her shoulders blazed and her legs were cement. And the real monsters hadn't even stepped up yet. The ref made the right call. Martinez was pissed at himself. Sarah offered a hand up. Hell of a fight, Corporal. Your mat skills are legit. Not legit enough, he muttered, exiting the ring as she staggered to her corner. Water. Towel. 3 down. Halfway. How you feel? Gassed. No point in lying. Good. That pain's yours. They're winded. Just watching. You're on top. Stay there. She collapsed. Shoulders burning. Legs dead. 8 minutes of hell. She'd never done this for real. 3 straight fights. Rehearsal ain't the real deal. Now she was gasping for air. With 3 more killers waiting, her father's face flashed in her mind. Mogadishu. 4 tangos. 11 minutes. Broken ribs. Dislocated shoulder. He survived 11 minutes. She just had to survive a little longer. No way out. Time, bellowed the ref. Mitchell! Davis! Davis entered with a boxer's calm, fluid, precise. The most skilled striker in the unit. He would wait for her. Gassed as she was, that was a death wish. Davis circled like a predator. 5'11", 180, all whipcord muscle, a Muay Thai guy. She knew his tape. He was a thinker. This was going to be a war. Davis was a true middleweight who just watched 3 buddies get wrecked. He knew what she could do. They met in the center. His expression was granite. Respect, Lieutenant. But it ends here. I know. Fight. Davis settled into his stance. High guard, elbows in, perfect form, all business. She moved, hunting for a tell. He fired a leg kick. She checked it, the smack of bone on bone echoing. He fired another, same result. He was setting a rhythm, drawing her in. For 40 seconds, it was feints and probes. A feeling out process. The crowd held its breath. It was a chess match. Then he threw a razor-sharp elbow. She slipped it by a hair, the wind brushing her face. Her counter was picked off. They reset. A minute down, he threw a perfect 1-2 kick. She defended. Then he committed, driving a knee straight for her solar plexus, and she caught it. Her hands locked onto his leg. In that split second, Davis saw his mistake. His eyes widened. He was off balance, committed, standing on one foot. She torqued his leg, using his momentum against him. He tried to hop back. It was too late. She launched herself into the air, a flying triangle she'd repped 1,000 times. Her legs scissored around his neck and shoulder as they crashed to the canvas. It was locked in, his own arm jammed against his carotid artery. A textbook triangle. Davis, ever the pro, fought to posture up and break the hold, but the angle was perfect. She grabbed her own ankle, squeezed her knees, and cut off the circulation to his brain. He fought it for 30, then 40 seconds. His face turned deep red. Then the taps came. 1 minute and 44 seconds. She released. Davis gasped for air. He recovered, stood, and offered a fist bump. Flawless, ma'am. Respect. She bumped it back. You're a hell of a striker, Corporal, she said. Not good enough, he replied with a genuine grin, leaving with his head high. The gym was roaring. 4 down. But Turner saw what the crowd didn't. Her hands were shaking. 2 to go. The heavy hitters were still in the wings. Her system was screaming. 4 wins looked easy from the outside, but she was crumbling internally. Her arms shook. Her legs felt disconnected. 4 matches in 14 minutes. She was on fumes. Turner knew it. 2 more. The Beast and the Boss. This is how you make a name for yourself, Lieutenant. Mitchells don't break. She could only nod, sucking down water, trying to do the impossible. Across the mat, the last two huddled up. Sergeant Cooper, the giant, looked spooked. Staff Sergeant Bennett, the top dog, was a statue. His eyes were cold, calculating, already adjusting his game plan. The ref separated them. Next up, Mitchell versus Cooper. Cooper was 6'4", 240 pounds, 115 pounds on her. The biggest man in the room. And he was fresh. Her engine was failing, his was just starting. This next round would take everything she had left. Cooper was a mountain of a man at 6'4", 240, 115 pounds heavier, with a reach advantage a foot long. The whole ring seemed to sag as he entered. She willed herself to her feet. Her legs were disconnected from her brain. She met him in the center. He loomed over her, his expression pained. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I don't want to do this." "Then get it over with, Sergeant." They tapped gloves. His fist engulfed hers. The ref yelled, "Fight!" Cooper stalked forward, using his reach to control the center. Sarah circled, her feet heavy, the toll of 4 fights, robbing her of speed. A jab snapped out. She leaned back as it sliced the air. Another followed. She slipped it. He was gauging distance, owning the space. For 30 seconds, he patiently worked the jab while she struggled to get inside. He could do this forever, picking her apart from range. She lunged in after a slip, but he just angled out, keeping her at bay. A minute crawled by, the crowd restless with the tactical pace. But Sarah was learning. He was big, but slower. She recalled his tell from training. His left hand dropped when he gassed. She just had to drain his tank. She pressed forward, making him work. He responded with textbook boxing. 90 seconds in, his breathing grew labored. Those heavy arms were a liability. She eyed his left, still disciplined. 1 minute, 45 seconds, gone. He unleashed a heavy right. Sarah rolled under it and saw the opening. His left dipped just for a moment as he recoiled. Fatigue. Instinct took over. The next 2 seconds were a massive gamble. If she missed, his 240 pounds would crush her. But if it landed, she shot in, launching a flying armbar. She went airborne, her legs wrapping his arm as she dropped. Shock flared in Cooper's eyes. He tried to pull free, but was trapped. Her legs cinched tight as her hips torqued his elbow. They slammed onto the mat. The pop was audible across the squad bay. Cooper roared, hammering the mat with his good hand. Sarah let go instantly. He clutched his arm as medics rushed in. 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Finesse beat power. 5 down. She was running on empty. Her legs trembled, vision blurring. 1 fight left. The final test. The architect of this gauntlet, Staff Sergeant Marcus Bennett. He was fresh, rested, and now he knew she was a threat. Her own pulse hammered in her ears. Turner shoved a water bottle at her. "Drink. Breathe. 2 minutes." She obeyed, her hands shaking from 15 minutes of relentless combat. Every lesson, every drill had been validated. The Phantom Protocol was real. Now came Bennett, 6'2", 195 pounds of Golden Gloves champion. He was untouched, undefeated. For 20 minutes, he'd watched her, breaking down her style. Sarah glanced over. Bennett was stone-faced, his earlier smugness replaced by a cold, warrior's focus. He knew he'd misjudged her. This one would be different, smarter. Corbman helped the injured Cooper from the ring. As he passed, he gave her a sharp nod of respect. The ref checked her condition. "Lieutenant, can you go on?" "Yes, sir." "Final bout, 3-minute rounds." "Copy?" She nodded. This wasn't going to a decision. Bennett met her at center ring. He looked enormous. They touched gloves. "This is where it ends, Lieutenant." "We'll see, Staff Sergeant." The ref's hand fell. "Fight!" The next 6 minutes would be a journey past pain and into a place where only the will to win mattered. Her spirit versus his skill. Bennett wasn't a brawler. He opened with a textbook stance, his jab a piston, testing her defense. She slipped it, then another. He was a machine, setting a rhythm, probing for weaknesses. It was a violent chess game. She moved, conserving what little energy she had left. After 17 minutes of fighting, she was on fumes. He pressed with a sharp 1-2, She parried the first punch. The second caught her shoulder. He followed with a hook. She weaved under it and shot for a takedown. He sprawled perfectly, denying her. 30 seconds in, he was in complete control. A 4-punch salvo landed. The final hook detonated on her ear, her vision flashing white. He smelled blood. Another flurry came. A jab split her lip. 1 minute gone. She was a half step slow, her body betraying her. He threw a straight right. She slipped it and landed a hard kick to his leg. He absorbed it and fired a cross that snapped her head back. She was losing. To lose this was to lose everything. Her career, her father's legacy. Turner's voice echoed in her mind. When you're broken, show them who you are. 2 minutes down. He landed another clean shot. Her right eye was swelling shut. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. He jabbed. She slipped. She saw it then, his right shoulder dipped. A tell from an old injury. But she was too slow. The bell shrieked. 3 minutes. End of round 1. She collapsed onto the stool. He's all over me, she gasped. Can't get close. You have to, Turner said. Forget boxing. Make him grapple. You saw his shoulder. I'm fried. Then get fried on top of him. Get tired while you're putting him to sleep. He gripped her jaw. Your father fought for 11 minutes. You're at 20. Make this one for the history books. The buzzer blared. She stood on wobbly legs and met him at the center. He looked immaculate. Round 2. Fight! He came forward with that same precise, controlled aggression. But she was done playing his game. Time to show him what happens when a Mitchell is cornered. He jabbed. She slipped under it, driving forward, crashing the distance and killing his reach. He tried to shove her away, but she used his force against him. A quick judo foot sweep as he pushed. His balance broke. It was all the opening she needed. They went down in a heap. He tried to lock up his guard, but her ground game was superior. She passed straight to side control. He bucked, trying to escape, but she flowed with him, taking his back as he turned. This was her world. Bennett was face down. Sarah latched on with a body triangle. He was a shark on land. He tried to stand and shake her, but her legs were a vice. She was a suffocating weight he couldn't shed. Her hand started hunting for the choke. He defended, chin down. She was patient, feeling his panic build. She peppered his ribs with short shots, making him react. He made a mistake. He grabbed her wrists, leaving his neck exposed for a second. Her arm slid under his chin. She locked her hands for the choke. It wasn't clean, but it was on. The pressure on his jaw had to be immense. For 30 seconds, they fought for millimeters. Frustrated, he used both his hands to claw at her arm. It was a fatal mistake. She transitioned, sinking her forearm across his carotid. The choke was now perfect. His eyes went wide. It was over. He had maybe 10 seconds. She felt his pulse hammering against her arm. Bennett's pride wouldn't let him tap. The same arrogance he started with. 5 seconds. His movements grew sluggish. 3 seconds. His body went slack. The ref dove in, waving it off. Stop! He's out! Sarah released him. Bennett collapsed, unconscious. A deafening roar filled the gym. She knelt, exhausted but triumphant. 6 opponents, 6 victories, 22 minutes of pure hell. She had done the impossible. But this wasn't about celebrating. It was about the lesson. The entire barracks was on its feet. The noise, a physical force. Her legs wouldn't work. She had nothing left. 6 bigger, stronger men, and she had dominated every one. Medics revived Bennett. He'd been unconscious for a full 30 seconds. He blinked. Fog cleared to reality, then the burn of disgrace. She stood 10 feet off. Their gazes met. Something changed. Acknowledgement, respect. Trembling, Sarah rose and held out a hand. Pride fought honor. Honor took over. He accepted her grip, letting her haul him up. The crowd erupted, SEALs yelling her call sign. She raised their joined hands. The roar faded. He leaned close, his voice a rasp. I was wrong. She just nodded. I know. How? 'Cause you're standing. Most would have tapped out. You took the loss. That's a Marine. Gender's irrelevant. His eyes were wet. Don't cry, princess. His own damn words. A faint smile crossed her face. Blood stained her grin, one eye swelling. And I won. The ref lifted her arm. It was official, before 400 souls. She'd done the impossible, proved her dad right. Skill beats muscle, and heart overall. Master Chief Turner entered the ring, hugging her tight. Your father's watching, proud as hell. The weight hit her. Pain, fatigue, emotion. No tears. Not now. A Marine stays focused. This op wasn't done. The real win wasn't in the fight. It was whether a man could change, if honor could defeat pride, and if this victory had started something real. The gym emptied out. Corpsmen checked them both over. Vitals, pupils, the whole concussion workup. Sarah sat on the canvas, icing her face. Her lip was busted. Her body felt like it'd been through a grinder. Muscles screamed. Adrenaline made her hands shake. But she'd won. 6 fights, 6 victories. Impossible made real. Across the ring, Bennett iced his neck. The weight of his world, just shattered in front of his peers, was visible on his face. Captain Harrison approached. His expression was stone, but his eyes showed pride. Lieutenant, good work. Medics cleared you. Nothing major. Thank you, sir. Staff Sergeant Bennett will pay the debt. Monday, 0800, information. He'll apologize then. Harrison paused. You proved something beyond the physical. That excellence has no bias. After the captain left, a heavy quiet fell. Not hostile now, just thick with what had happened. Bennett finally broke it, staring at the mat. You could have let me tap, saved my ass. You chose the choke, put me out instead of just breaking a limb. She thought about it. An armbar teaches nothing. You needed this canvas. A total loss. No luck, no excuses, just better technique. He nodded slowly. Rachel would have dug you. Sarah waited. My sister wanted to be a Marine. I said she was too small, a liability. His voice broke. She died before I could take it back. Before I could admit she was right. For 8 years, I made damn sure no woman proved me wrong. If one of you could, she could have. I killed her dream for pride. The confession hung in the air. This wasn't about her. It was about his sister, his guilt. 8 years of grief turned to poison. What she said now could change a man or a culture. Sarah, let it sink in. Your words didn't kill her, but stopping others from serving, that dishonors her. I know, I get that now. He met her eyes. Teach me, the Phantom Protocol. Let me pass it on. So the next Rachel won't face this. She offered her hand. He shook it. A deal. Tuesday. 0600. Bring your fire team. The weekend was for recovery. Ice, sleep. Her body healed from 22 minutes of war. By Monday, she moved right. 500 Marines stood in formation. The base was there. 6 men stood behind their NCO. Sarah stood at parade rest by Captain Harrison and Master Chief Turner. The sun was already biting. Bennett marched to the podium, his blues sharp, his face was tight. Morning. I'm Staff Sergeant Bennett, Force Recon. I'm here to make a public apology. His voice boomed. To Lieutenant Mitchell, to every female Marine, to every woman who wore this uniform, I was wrong. He let it land. I was 100% inexcusably wrong. I judged a warrior by gender. I let my personal baggage become my professional standard. I chose humiliation over evaluation. His hands shook slightly. Saturday, Lieutenant Mitchell beat my squad. 6 Marines, while gassed. She did it with a skill that humbles me. She proved it's not about gender, it's about heart. He turned to her. Lieutenant Mitchell, you are a warrior. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I tried to break you. You have my apology and my respect. Bennett saluted. It was textbook perfect. Sarah returned it. The seals clapped, and it spread like fire. The apology was public. But action, not words, would show if prejudice could turn to partnership, if this fight would echo. 8 weeks changed his squad. Sarah ran them through her protocol daily. Technique over size, brains over brawn. Bennett became her best student, needing to know the why behind the system, how it all worked. They became friends, forged in conflict and sealed by mutual respect. Sarah found she loved to teach, to break down her father's system for them. Then, one Tuesday, the world changed. They were on the O course when Captain Harrison showed, "Mitchell, Bennett, my office." Now, they ran to the admin building. Brass and a civilian spook filled the room. "Sit." Harrison's tone was sharp. "We have a situation. Yemen. 8 American contractors taken hostage 3 days back. Intel says they're in a compound. We're spinning up a rescue op. SEAL Team 5 is lead, recon in support." Harrison locked eyes with her. "Lieutenant, you're running the CQB element. 12 operators, a mix of ours and theirs. Your job is getting those hostages out breathing." Sarah's heart pounded. A real-world op. Life and death. Was she ready? Would Bennett follow her? "Yes, sir. I'll do it." "Gunny Bennett, your squad is attached to the lieutenant's element, under her command." Objections? Bennett was instant. "None, sir. It's an honor." The next 72 hours were a blur. Intel, gear, rehearsals. Sarah planned the op with every lesson learned. Dawn broke over the deck of the USS Winston Churchill. Master Chief Turner found her at the rail. He'd called in favors to be here. "Your dad stood on a deck like this before Mogadishu," he said. "Same son." Sarah nodded. "I'm scared, Master Chief. What if I lose someone? You carry it, like every CO before you. But your plan is solid. Your team is ready. Trust your gut. Trust the training. Trust the protocol was made for this." 12 operators gathered in the hangar, kitted up, weapons hot, ready for the storm. Sarah stood before them. "Gentlemen, 8 Americans are on enemy soil. They've been held 4 days. The clock's running. Our mission? Get in, get them out, bring everyone home." She flipped on the screen. 3 buildings. Hostages are in the middle one, second floor, at least 6 guards. She walked them through it, covering all angles. Bennett asked sharp questions. The SEALs made suggestions. The plan was solid. ROE is simple. Deadly force is authorized, but the package is priority. If it's a choice between a shot and a hostage, you wait. We take the risk, not them. Sarah looked at their faces. Questions? Nothing. Gear up. We launch in 30. This wasn't a drill. 1 screw up, 1 body bag. This was leadership. This was bringing your people home. And this was where Bennett had to follow a woman into hell. The insertion was clean. 2 boats hit the beach at 02:15. No contact. The team moved inland, fast and quiet. The hump was 2 clicks in 40 minutes over shattered black earth. Sarah took point, Bennett tight on her 6, the team stacked behind. They hit the wire at 02:55. Through her NODs, she saw 3 sentries, smoking, completely out of it. She flashed the signal. 3 shooters acquired their targets. Sarah ran a silent count on her hand. 3, 2, 1. 3 muffled cracks broke the silence. 3 guards crumpled. They never saw it coming. Sarah pushed forward, the stack moving like wraiths. At the main structure, Bennett prepped a breach. Another count, the charge blew the door inward. Sarah was first through the fatal funnel. She shouldered her HK-416 NVGs, painting the world in shades of ghost green. Hallway clear, she advanced. The stack poured in after her, a single, lethal organism. Contact. 3 tangos in the next room, armed and scrambling. Her rifle coughed twice. Center mass, 1 down. Bennett dropped the second. A SEAL put down the third. 7 seconds. 3 hostiles, neutralized. They pushed on. Stairs. A death trap, but unavoidable. Sarah led the climb. Slow, methodical. At the top, another hallway. Shouted Arabic. Their window of surprise was slamming shut. She cleared the hall, hit the locked door. Bennett brought up the shotgun. 1 blast blew the lock apart. Inside, 8 American hostages, tied but breathing. Her team flooded the room, cutting zip ties, checking vitals, moving them out. Then rifles barked downstairs. The compound lit up. compromised. Move! The hostages were up. They were terrified but mobile. The team hustled them toward the stairs. Bennett and 3 Marines laid down a base of fire covering their 6. Halfway down, Sarah saw him, a hostile rounding the corner, weapon rising. She put a double tap in his chest. Threat down. Go! Ground floor. The front gate was 60 feet away, a kill box raked with fire from at least 15 insurgents. A suicide run. Back door. Bennett, find another way. He and his fire team broke off. Sarah and the SEALs held the line, making each round count. Then Bennett's voice crackled. Got a clean exit. Move! They began a fighting withdrawal. Package in the center, operators forming a hard shell. They blasted through a rear door into the total darkness outside the compound walls. Her team was made for this chaos. The enemy was not. They ran, putting 2 clicks between them and the target. Fear gave the hostages wings. A mile from the objective, the world tore itself apart. Heavy machine gun fire erupted from a ridgeline. At least 15 shooters with a PKM pinning them down. They were caught in the open. Everything went sideways. The kind of moment that makes or breaks a leader. The team ate dirt, returning fire into the muzzle flashes, but they were trapped. Bennett saw the slim chance first, a small depression, a covered route to get on their flank. Hayes, we're flanking, he yelled. Give us 30 seconds of hate. Roger. Sarah flipped her rifle to rock and roll, the SEALs opening up with her. Bennett and 4 Marines moved like smoke, hugging the ground. They got behind the enemy position. The PKM swung toward them as Bennett's team opened up. The ambush shattered, caught in a crossfire. Bennett's team cleaned up the last threats with brutal speed. Then his strained voice came over the net. I'm hit. Leg. Can't move. The choice was automatic. Team, secure the package. Get to the LZ. I'm getting Bennett. Negative, Lieutenant. Turner's voice was like ice in her ear. That's a direct order. Send another man. Not a chance, Master Chief. Sarah was already sprinting back. 60 yards of open desert, rounds snapping past her head. She found him behind a rock, tourniquet already cinched tight. He wasn't walking. What the hell are you doing? Bennett hissed. Saving your ass, so shut up. She grabbed his plate carrier and hauled him up in a fireman's carry. 195 pounds of Marine on her 125-pound body. She ran, legs screaming, lungs burning. Bennett returned fire from her shoulder. 50 yards, 40, 30. Her world was a tunnel. Her legs were numb, but they kept churning. 1 foot, then the other. 20 yards. Her team threw up a wall of steel. 10 yards. Her legs buckled. She fell, Bennett rolling clear. Corman grabbed him, dragging him the last few feet to safety. Birds inbound. 30 mics, Turner called. 2 F-18 Hornets roared overhead, their 30mm cannons chewing the ridgeline to pieces. The enemy fire vanished. 2 MH-60 helos touched down. Sarah helped load the hostages, all 8 accounted for. Her team was intact. Bennett was last on, medics swarming his leg. He grabbed her arm. You saved my life, after all that. You're my Marine, Gunny. We don't leave our own. Sarah squeezed his hand. Besides, you're not getting out of PT on Tuesday. Bennett coughed a laugh, then grimaced. Roger that, ma'am. The helos climbed, Yemen shrinking below. Mission success. 8 Americans recovered, 0 Kia, 1 WIA expected to fully recover. Sarah collapsed against the bulkhead, letting the bone-deep weariness take her. She'd done it. She'd led her team, saved lives, and proved her father's system worked in the crucible. But the true fight was just ahead. 6 months from now, she'd face a decision that would redefine her entire life. And Master Chief Turner was about to tell her a secret about her father that would shatter her world. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the grinder at Dam Neck, Virginia. The promotion was a result of the Yemen op, a ticket to SEAL Team 6. Her leadership under fire had punched her card. Bennett, fully recovered, had taken a billet as the Marine liaison to Deb Group. He jumped at the chance. Now, Sarah taught advanced CQB to 32 operators from every corner of Soft SEALs, Rangers, Raiders. 30 men, 2 women. Bennett was her assistant instructor, a master of the Phantom Protocol. Today was about fighting bigger opponents. Sarah asked for a volunteer. A giant ranger, 6'5" and 230, stepped forward. Size matters in a fight, Sarah began. Just not the way you think. This man has 80 pounds and 7 inches on me. Now watch. The Marine sold the takedown perfectly. Later, a female Marine raised her hand. Ma'am, the mind games, how do you deal with it? The constant crap about not being big enough? A small, hard smile touched Sarah's lips. You don't. You make it a non-factor. You become so damn good that your actions shut them up for good. Undeniable excellence is its own rank, Bennett added. For the doubters, well, we learned the hard way. I got choked out in front of my whole battalion. Best lesson of my life. Laughter filled the room. When they cleared out, Bennett came over. Ma'am, your 1600 brief is in 10. Sarah checked her watch. Right, the meeting that had been hanging over her all week. Thanks, Gunny. Stow the gear. Done, ma'am. In her dress blues, she walked to the Marsoc Memorial Garden, a quiet place of names etched in black granite. Sergeant Major Turner was there, retired but never gone. A mentor, he was 63, more gray now, but his eyes were just as sharp. Sergeant Major. Sarah. He used her first name like family. How's the class? Solid. Really good. Breaking down Dad's system, seeing it connect with these operators, it feels right. Your father would be proud. He wanted the protocol to outlive him. It seems it will. A silence settled between them as they scanned the names of the fallen. So many brothers gone. The price of being the sharp end. Sarah's fingers found her dad's name, tracing the cool letters. Gunnery Sergeant William Mitchell, a 13-year ritual. The call came down, Sarah said quietly. Task Force Command in Afghanistan. HVT hunting. A 6-month rotation. You taking it? I don't know. Part of me still has to prove it. Prove that night wasn't a fluke. That Yemen wasn't just blind luck. Turner was quiet for a long time. Your father told me something the night before he died. The night before his last op. Sarah stopped breathing. She couldn't speak. He said being a warrior isn't about the fight, the kills, or the validation. Turner's voice was heavy with 13 years of memory. It's about mourning your brothers, wiping your face, and getting back on the wall. Because the line has to be held. Turner's voice thickened. He said, warriors hurt because we're built to absorb the whole damn thing and still function. Strong enough to break and still hold our ground. The tears she had suppressed for years finally came, hot and raw. For her father, for 13 years gone, for the weight of his name. Turner placed a heavy hand on her shoulder. You'd walled that grief up since you were 13, from the day they brought that folded flag home. You forged yourself into steel. Bennett's taunt from day one echoed, no tears, princess. He called it a weakness. You found out he was dead wrong. Crying was never the weakness. Choking it down when your soul needs the release. That's the flaw. It's denying the wound, refusing to pay the cost. Turner nodded gravely. Your father mourned every man we lost. He'd find a quiet space, let it out, then square his gear and lead. He was the best raider I ever served with. The toughest man I knew, and he grieved. Bennett materialized at the edge of the garden, hesitant. Sarah beckoned him over. He approached with quiet deference. Pardon the interruption, ma'am. Quick sit rep. The Afghanistan brief is postponed 48 hours. High Command is reviewing your team roster recommendations. Sarah glanced between Turner and Bennett, her eyes landing on her father's nameplate. Make it 72 hours. I need some headspace. Bennett gave a sharp nod, then hesitated. Ma'am, you set the standard. He would be incredibly proud. After he left, Sarah faced Turner again. I'm taking the deployment. Not to prove anything, but because it's the mission. Because evil exists and someone has to face it. Dad would say the same. But Top, when I get back, I'm taking leave. Real leave. Going home. To see Mom. To stand at his grave and just unload. Be a person. Turner wrapped her in a firm, fatherly embrace. That's the most sense you've made in years. Your old man would 100% approve of that. The two warriors stood among the memorials, one remembering the dead, both readying for the fight. Sarah wiped her face, fixing her cover. Time to brief the team. What's the word? That the mission is greenlit. We have a job. People are relying on us, and we're ready. Turner smiled. Your father always said one last thing before stepping off, which was, try to hold it together, kid. But if you can't, do it after the objective is secured. You earn your tears after the fight is won, then you get your head on straight and get back in it. That's the job. Sarah headed for the briefing room, Bennett falling in beside her. Staff Sergeant, I appreciate your willingness to see a new perspective. Ma'am, thank you for showing me what right looks like. You saved my skin in Yemen. I owe you, you owe me, zip. But if you want to settle up, help me forge the next generation. We'll make damn sure skill is all that counts. Deal. They entered the briefing room. 12 raiders were ready. The unit she would lead into the Afghan highlands, a team that would follow her through hell itself because she'd earned their unwavering trust. Sarah stood before them, thinking of her dad, of Turner, of the road that led her here. Gentlemen, we have 6 months of hard road ahead. Let's dig into the plan. The brief began, operations were outlined, and contingencies were wargamed, the precise work of professionals. Later, in her quarters, she laid out her father's journal, his trident, and his worn MC map belt. They were the artifacts of a legacy she was sworn to uphold. She thought about the trials, about Bennett's transformation, about Yemen, and the coming tour. One common thread bound it all, her father's unwavering belief in her. Sarah opened her own journal and wrote, Dad, you gave me the Phantom Protocol 13 years ago. I'm adding to it tonight, because the system is more than technique, it's a way of life. Your greatest lesson was this: a warrior isn't defined by avoiding the fall, but by rising again. We aren't measured by the tears we suppress, but by wiping them away to finish the job. You told me, try not to cry, but you showed me that grief isn't weakness, it's humanity. And a human who fights despite the pain, that is the very definition of a warrior. I'm taking a team into the mountains. We will hunt our enemies and do what must be done. When I get home, I'll visit you and tell you all about it. Until then, know this. You crafted something that will last forever. The Phantom Protocol isn't just mine. It's Bennett's now. It belongs to every Marine I mentor. It's for anyone who learns that skill beats strength, wits beat size, and spirit is everything. Thank you for making me ready, and for creating a system that proves competence has no gender. I love you, I miss you, and I will make you proud. Sarah. She set her notebook beside her father's. 2 generations of warriors, 2 chronicles of wisdom, 1 timeless truth. Real strength is not being unbreakable. It's knowing you can break, and choosing to heal, to rise, and to fight anyway. 3 weeks later, Sarah was on a C-17 climbing out of Andrews. Bennett and her raiders were with her, locked in for a 6-month tour. As they left Virginia Beach behind, she felt the cool metal of her father's tags against her skin. A young Marine saw them. Your dad's, ma'am? Yes, he was a raider. KIA, Afghanistan, 2011. My condolences, ma'am. Don't be. He went out on his feet, covering his team, serving the Corps. Sarah gave a faint smile. He taught me everything about this life. The biggest lesson was that try not to cry is about timing, not toughness. Ma'am, warriors grieve. We just choose the right time and place. We mourn when the mission's done, after the work is finished, when we've earned a moment to feel what we held back. Sarah looked at her team. Then we get ourselves right and prepare for the next objective. Because the job is never truly over. Someone has to hold the line. The Marine nodded, with a look of new understanding. Sarah leaned her head back, closing her eyes. In 6 months, she'd be back stateside. She would take that leave, see her mom, and stand at her father's grave. The tears would come then. She would let them. But for now, there was a mission, a team depending on her, an enemy to find and friendlies to save. For now, she was Major Sarah Mitchell, MARSOC, a phantom warrior and her father's daughter. She finally grasped the truth. Warriors cry for their brothers, for the price paid, for the parts of themselves left behind in the dirt, because only those who have been broken know how to be truly whole. They mourn, they wipe their eyes, then they get back in the fight. Not because some code says they must be tough, but because it is the essence of who they are. If this story matters to you, make sure you're locked on with notifications and sound off with your location in the comments.